Suffering is one of the greatest mysteries of human existence. Why do good people face hardships? Why does a loving God allow pain and suffering? These are questions that have been asked throughout history. One of the most profound stories in the Bible that addresses these questions is the story of Job. His journey is one of faith, endurance, and trust in God, even in the face of unimaginable loss. Job was a man who lived in the land of Uz. He was known for his righteousness, his devotion to God, and his prosperous life. The Bible describes him as a man who feared God and turned away from evil. He had 10 children, vast wealth, and great influence in his community. He was a man of deep faith, offering sacrifices for his family, ensuring that they remained right before God. Everything seemed perfect, but Job had no idea that his faith was about to be tested in ways he never imagined. Unbeknownst to him, a conversation took place in the spiritual realm. The Bible describes a moment when the heavenly beings presented themselves before God, and among them was Satan. God pointed to Job, highlighting his faithfulness, but Satan argued that Job was only loyal because of his blessings. If everything were taken away, Satan claimed, Job would curse God. In response, God allowed Satan to test Job's faith, but not to harm him physically. Then came the day that changed everything. One by one, Job received devastating news. A servant rushed in, gasping for breath, to report that his oxen and donkeys had been stolen, his servants killed. Before he could process that, another messenger arrived. Fire from the heavens had burned up his sheep. Another ran in. His camels were taken. More servants slain. And then, the most heartbreaking blow of all. His children were feasting in their eldest brother's house when a great wind collapsed the building, killing them all. Can you imagine the grief? The loss was beyond comprehension. Job, in anguish, tore his robe, shaved his head, and fell to the ground. But instead of cursing God, he worshipped. He said, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." But Satan was not finished. He returned to God and argued that Job remained faithful only because he had not suffered in his own body. If he experienced physical torment, he would surely turn against God. This time, God permitted Satan to afflict Job's health, but he was not allowed to take his life. Soon, Job's body was covered in painful sores from head to toe. His once powerful presence was reduced to a man sitting in ashes, scraping his wounds with broken pottery. His wife, overwhelmed with grief, urged him to curse God and die, but Job refused. "Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" he asked. As news of his suffering spread, 3 of Job's friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, came to comfort him. But when they saw his condition, they were speechless. For 7 days, they sat in silence. Then, when they finally spoke, instead of offering encouragement, they accused him. They insisted that Job must have done something wrong to deserve such suffering. "Consider now," one of them said, "who, being innocent, has ever perished?" Job defended himself. He had done no wrong. He questioned why God allowed such suffering, why the wicked seemed to prosper while the righteous suffered. He wrestled with deep spiritual questions, longing for an answer from God. His lamentations grew deeper as he cried out in desperation, wishing he had never been born. Why is life given to those who suffer, to those who long for death that does not come? Job's suffering was more than physical, it was emotional and spiritual, shaking him to his very core. At one point, a fourth man, Elihu, entered the conversation. Unlike Job's other friends, he had a different perspective. He argued that suffering might not always be a punishment, but could be a means for God to teach and refine a person. Still, Job continued to plead for an audience with God, longing for answers. And then, God answered. Out of a mighty whirlwind, God spoke. But he did not explain why Job suffered. Instead, he asked Job a series of questions that reveal the vastness of his wisdom and power. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me, if you understand. God described the mysteries of creation, the depths of the sea, the pathways of the stars. Job, humbled, realized that human understanding is limited. He had questioned God's justice, but now he saw that God's ways are beyond human comprehension. In awe, Job replied, My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. God then rebuked Job's friends for their false accusations and told them to seek Job's prayers for forgiveness. And as Job prayed for them, something incredible happened. God restored him. Job received double of everything he had lost. His wealth multiplied, he had more children, and he lived a long, fulfilled life. His suffering had tested his faith, but in the end, he was rewarded beyond measure. His story reminds us that life is full of trials, but those trials do not define us. Our faith does. Sometimes we may never fully understand why we suffer, but we can trust that God is in control. Even when the storm is raging, He is with us. Even when everything seems lost, He has a plan greater than we can see. In life, we all experience moments when we feel abandoned, when our prayers seem unanswered, when our struggles seem too heavy to bear. Job's story teaches us that even in those moments, God is still at work. He may not answer in the way we expect, but His wisdom surpasses our understanding. When we face hardship, we can either turn away from God or lean into Him. Job's story is an invitation to trust, to hold on, and to believe that there is purpose even in the pain. Imagine what Job felt when everything was restored. The joy, the relief, the realization that God had never left him. What if we too held on in the darkest moments? What if we chose faith over fear, trust over doubt? If you've ever felt like Job, lost, broken, questioning why, remember that you are not alone. Hold on to your faith. Keep trusting. And if this story spoke to you, share it with someone who needs encouragement. Leave a comment below. How has Job's story impacted you? What trials have you endured that strengthened your faith? Let's start a conversation and encourage one another. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful Bible stories that will strengthen your faith. May you find hope in the midst of your trials, knowing that God is always in control.